Yeah. Thank you very much, Sharad. Um, this is a statement in connection with what was pronounced most recently by Vice President Jagdeo. The AFC has noted the pronouncement by VP Jagdeo that Venezuelan migrants who are eligible must be allowed to vote in elections in Guyana. The AFC would not ever desire a situation where genuine Guyanese citizens, whether Venezuelan born, will ever be deprived of the vote. Such Venezuelans must be processed through an authentic system whereby the opposition can have scrutiny of all such Venezuelans. Electoral integrity will seriously be questioned if on the voters' roll their names are padded and they are not authentic citizens. The Alliance for Change is aware of Venezuelans who are getting birth certificates by claiming that they were born in Guyana and who are utilizing the amendment to the Births and Deaths Act, which has slackened the process for late registration of births. All that is required now is some well-aligned PPP touchous in these border regions to swear that they know that these persons were born in Guyana some decades ago. This is a dangerous development which we know the PPP will use to its advantage to win elections. It is necessary that each and every registrant under this new late registration process be made known publicly. And consequent upon this development, the AFC would like to see a halt on the granting of citizenships of all Venezuelans until the matter at the ICJ is resolved. A review also of the grants of all citizenships to Venezuelans in the last 2 years so that the opposition can see the authenticity of such grants. And that all Venezuelans granted citizenship in view of the severely strained relationship we have now with Venezuela not be allowed to be on the voters' roll. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon, and thanks to having the media and the listeners. My little statement here is going to be on statements on the second vice president press conference here that was held yesterday. You know, I watched the second vice president press conference, and when we thought that we had seen it all, we now realize there is no limit to the depth of shamelessness and depravity to which this man is willing to sink. First, he blames the Venezuelan crisis on fringe elements, trying to chisel away at the national solidarity. Where is the solidarity when he meets with the Venezuelans on October the 30th, after the meeting between the government and the opposition, pledging full cooperation between them, and nefariously and appeared to have nefariously lied about the opposition, causing xenophobic acts against them, while the PPP, on the other hand, loves them. We saw the video, Mr. Vice President, and a must-see of MPs Amanza Waltons, a true patriot in Little, and leader own video about that video. MP Walton is a real leader, and her patriotic video is a must for the media. I'm certain that the media saw both videos, but troubling that not a single question on them, though that the most critical matter and crisis facing this nation. He also did not even mention a word about it or wonder why. MP Walton wrote to Minister Todd, according to her video, asking whether such a meeting took place, whether the meeting was organized by the government, and for the transcript of the meeting to be made available to the opposition. We also implore that the media follow up with these crucial questions. If we are collaborating, we have to collaborate all the way, according to MP Walton. If such a meeting, it has now become apparent why he could not invite the opposition to that meeting where he accused the opposition of xenophobic acts. He's just taking the opportunity behind our backs to score cheap political points. He must, I repeat, he must repudiate that video or else should resign. For not to do so will be tantamount to being treasonous, as well articulated by our brilliant attorney, MP Walton. And then he had the gall to mention that the opposition and these fringe elements are misrepresenting his own views about what he has said in the past, like clipping tapes conveniently, like video footings to support the narrative they're pursuing. People know we have solidarity, so do not succumb to these crazy people, according to the Vice President. Who is really crazy, Mr. Vice President? Isn't it you, the same man who questions yourself from time as if you're sane or not, and have to remind yourself about whether you're sane? Remember that recent press conference just recently? He has no shame or believe that people are foolish and senile to not believe what they're seeing. The video of him at the top of his voice saying that we should give Venezuela a pathway to the Atlantic is there for all to see. The video is there for all of us to see when he lambasted the APNU, AFC government, when the opposition shouting as loud as possible that they sold out the nation's patrimony. Every Guyanese must be sad at every new oil discovery. That's what he said. And he will renegotiate the contract. It is obvious that he can't help himself, for this is a Russian dogma that one, if you tell a lie over and over, the people eventually believe it. And the abracadabra, that it is not really what you see. Then he says of all the things that we have to understand our history. When we had no freedom and no food, fled from oppression and hunger, they were economic migrants and had to flee. But what he didn't say, whether through ignorance or what, is that in those times, as I recall, we were ranked around the second poorest country in the hemisphere, behind Haiti. So there was a legitimate reason to seek a better life abroad. There was no oil, but now we have oil and is the richest country on the planet. So what is causing the mass migration now, Mr. Jagdio? He himself castigated the opposition for only talking about feeding the people in a recent conference, which means that he's not interested in the basic things such as feeding the people. Then on the fact-finding mission, he is now questioning the credibility, those were his words, of the U.S. fact-finding mission. That, this is what he said, that the fact-finding mission, they should do find the person who headed the meeting in Washington, D.C. He's just obsessed with this meeting in Washington, D.C. He says, Guyana is more integrated country than the United States. So now he's attacking these honorable congressmen and the United States. He says again that that Guyana is more integrated country than the USA, and would find more cases of discrimination in America than Guyana and in the states where these people are coming from. He's now personally attacking these senators or congressmen or whatever position they hold. And he said they should start in the United States and then come here. The bottom line is that this man has no class to be insulting these honorable legislators from the most powerful country in the world. He is not interested in unity and collaboration and national solidarity. It could only be seen as an opportunity to get Venezuelan votes to continue in power. He understands that Guyanese are fed up with him, from the blackouts to the hunger, to bulldozing people home, to the way that he's treating his own constituents, the cane cutters. But if he was doing anything good for the people when he holds on to power, as he wants to do, that would have been one thing. His problem is that he only keeping power for his friends, families, and favorites, as everyone sees where the oil money is going and not going. It's only going to the top 1% of his friends, families, and favorites. He is desperate and believes that he could survive by playing politics with our patrimony, our people, and our national security. His modus operandi is to create a problem and then blame everybody except himself. We see what happened with the Policia episode, where he's now throwing Hickens and Ben under the bus. We've seen what happens with the $14 million, the $214 million disappearing to $3 million. We've seen what happened with the Skeleton estate. And I can go on and on. So that would be my presentation. Thank you.
Excellent.
Hi, Sherrod. Good afternoon. You can hear me? I'm trying to get my video on, but just 1 second. If you, the press, if you could excuse me during, I'll keep trying to get my video on. But I like to make a statement purely on the status of GPL and the proprietariness. As you know, the country has been experiencing for the last 3 months. It's not a reach, for the last 3 months. It started off as sporadic power outages. It's now gone to the state where it's almost daily. The government has refrained and in Donald Trump style has prevented alternative facts. They're now calling it energy conservation and power rationing. But if anybody would have been to the Alliance for Change press conferences since 2020, we have warned repeatedly about this issue. We'd said that this was coming. Thank you. I was able to get my video on, and that this will be coming. The truth of the matter is that they have mismanaged the entire sector. And let me break it down to where we are at the moment. Two of the new sets that were purchased by the APNU AFC and installed in the Garden Eden are malfunctioning. One of the sets in Kingston number 1, they will have told you this, but I'll give you the background for it. What Kingston number 1 is done, and engine number 4 in Kingston number 1 is under. Hello? Yes. What they haven't told you is that all of the sets of GPL has been derated, and this is purely down to a lack of maintenance. So while we have a shortfall, all of the sets, our new sets, and I'm talking in particularly the ones in Kingston and in Breeden Hoop, have been derated. When we left there, they were producing at their maximum capacity. I was informed a couple of days ago, last week Thursday, to be honest, that the ones at Kingston and Garden Eden are actually operating at half or three-quarter. They're producing half or three-quarter their rating, purely because of a lack of maintenance. You can recall that that under our administration, we had established a specialized unit staffed by some of the brightest power generation engineers in the country. It was 141 of them in a company called PPDI. Immediately on taking back over the government, they fired about 80% of the staff, saying that they were super salaried. So all the bright brains, the CEO, the DCEO, the deputy, the head of power generation, they were all fired, and they recruited. Well, they haven't recruited anybody. And so one of the main reasons that the sets and the sets that have been derated are the ones that were used to be serviced by PPDI. They did this on purely vindictive reasons, thinking that it was a pet project of mine or the APNU. But as a result, we are now having a shortfall. There's another issue which we also wanted to highlight. I have seen, and maybe someone else can point me to, but I've looked at MPTAB website. I have seen no public procurement for the 17 sets that they're going to be buying from, I think it's DR, Dominican Republic. But there was no public advertisement for it. They just arrived, they just paid $28 million for it. And this obviously will be of assistance whenever they do get them and they do arrive and hook them up. However, that only addresses our current shortfall. This is the sets that they're bringing address the 2023 shortfall. They will need an additional 25 to 30 megawatts for 2024 and a similar amount for 2025. So we will wait to see what the plans they have. They've been claiming that the reason that GPL found themselves in this predicament is because of the lack of investment by the coalition government, which is not true, and I am quite sure that you journalists know that. But I thank you for not repeating that lie anymore made by the vice president and the ally or anyone, because you are aware of what's happening. There's a similar situation in Bartica. I've been told, and purely because of the lack of maintenance. So the three new sets that we bought, totaling 5.4 megawatts, which is three times the reserve in Needley and Bartica. Two of those sets are down. So they're having rolling blockouts in Bartica, and a similar issue in Anna Regina. Brand new sets are down, purely because they have not maintained them, they've mismanaged them, and so forth. I can tell you that if this continues, obviously they're hoping and they're praying and they put all the eggs in a basket that the gas energy project which they have in Wales will sort our problems, but I am not as optimistic as them. Under the coalition, we had a plan and which would have ensured that nothing like this would have happened, because we purchased all the sets that we purchased were dual fuel. And we were actually going to install them in a location. I don't know whichever location. We can argue which is the best location. We want to go on the East Coast. They want to go in Wales. But immediately on deciding a location, our plan was to install the generators and run them off of HFO, and that was the plan. And then obviously, when the natural gas comes in, you convert all the existing equipment to natural gas. That way, we don't end up doing what they're doing now, buying containerized sets, which obviously becomes redundant in a year. So all the money that they have to spend now on those sets goes totally down the drain if and when the gas power sure comes in. Of course, they've given us a timeline of December. My investigations have revealed that December is a very, very optimistic time frame, and I can anticipate us having this being the exact same position come for the Christmas season as well as into the new year. So that's what I'd like to say on that. And I'm open for questions on any of my presentation. Thank you, Sharon.
Mr. Ramchadan, Danish Demerara, sir, can you give us some numbers that you're seeing with respect to the number, with respect to the Venezuelans who are allegedly being registered using the loophole in the law?
Look, we have the scrutineers in those regions that are doing the registration process who have been declaring that there are, at this stage, dozens of persons that they know who are not born Guyanese 20, 30 years ago and who ought to apply. At this stage, we feel that since the registration was going on for a while, it could be lots more than just dozens. The names are going to be obviously coming to us. These are, as I have said at another press conference with Mr. Aubrey Norton, leader of the opposition, that we are going to get those names and make sure that the public gets to know. But it is also important to Dennis that when we are making these assertions, we are not in the best position. That is why I said that we have to have a process that will reveal to the opposition that indeed these Venezuelans that have now late registered, that we should know about it. Because we know the scam and the deception and the use or the abuse that it's going to be made of. Now that the president, vice president, well, he could call it president too, has said that they must be allowed to vote. Well, all of a sudden, he wants all of this thing to happen. So there is obviously a scheme. And we, because we are in no position with necessarily the resources and so on, but we are getting the information from our scrutineers that it is dozens, we feel that it could be lots more. And so we feel that there is an obligation in the government's part to ensure that we get the names of all those who were late registrants to the process in these various border regions.
You said dozens. What do you have an idea? 2 dozens, 3 dozens, or more?
Well, you know, you want to tie me down here, Dennis, as you normally do, and that is why I like when you come on as a journalist to question us. But indeed, it is a couple of dozens at this stage.
That means 2.
Yes, that means 2. Couple always means 2.
All right.
And so we feel, because we have situations in regions where the vote count was so close. We won by 1 vote, I think, in one region, the last elections. So you just have to get
Region 8.
Yeah, in Region 8. So you go now and you arrange some Venezuelans, you give them the voting rights and all of that, and they can make a difference in a region.
And outside of the formal press conference, how do you intend to advocate for some sort of system whereby all of the names are made public? Do you intend to probably write the government, engage the government, or GCOM? What is it?
Well, this is what we are doing here. By making public statements as an opposition party, we are informing the government, please, we would like a halt to the granting of these citizenships and all of that. For purposes, it could have electoral integrity challenges that could be dangerous for this country. And that is what we are saying. If the government don't want to listen to us, well, too bad. But the trouble is that by virtue of stating this, and that you will go on your Demerara waves to say what the AFC is saying, that is communication to them. That we would like to see the process properly scrutinized, and even a check on those who are granted late registration. How many? Because the government is saying that there aren't many. Well, if there aren't many, well, how much it is? Because they have the institutions that are doing the registration there, and the GCOM people too.
Yeah, but what
Hey,
I'm trying to
Cameron,
ascertain, sir, is don't you see the need for any such formal engagement with government and the GCOM to
We
have this
will
matter
also,
thrashed out?
yeah, that is true. We will also ask the question in Parliament of the relevant ministers. How many people have been so far at that stage of the date of the question have been registered as late registrants under the amendment, whereby a two shall now simply state that, yes, I know this man born 1990 and he didn't register, and I know he's Guyanese, and make him now a Guyanese citizen.
Hey, to add, Cameron, if I may just add in relative to the question about the numbers, the numbers really don't matter as long, even if there is one. What that is saying and what Cameron is saying is that system is broken and it needs to be fixed. It may be 24 now, but as the population of Venezuelans increase, it could increase rapidly. So that the numbers are not what's pertinent. Even if it's one, what is pertinent is that the system is broke and has to be fixed. I think that's the point that Kemraj is making. And like Kemraj rightly said, we lost an area by one vote.
We won.
By
We
one
won
vote.
the area. Yeah.
Yeah, may I? Okay, sorry. Adam Harris, there was a situation and the reports of dozens, I ain't saying nothing but couple, dozens of refugees storming into Guyana. Do you have an idea where these people are? Who are housing them? Who's feeding them? Because is it IOM, International Organization of Migrants, or what have you, seem unable to tell us how many refugees we have in Guyana. Are these people being recorded? Do you know whether any of those questions could be answered, sir?
Specifically, the answers that we got as part of this communication we had on this motion that will be on Monday, the government did not give us a breakdown of the migrants in the categories that we wanted, which is refugees, those who were turned back because of security reasons and did not enter, had to be sent back home because they might very well be suspicious characters and so on, and also those who are coming as citizens by late registrants and so on. The categories that we wanted, we were never given that. We were only given that from the year 2018, 2019, to 2022, I think, that there are 22,000 and more Venezuelans in the country for each year within the various regions, and that was what was given. As to whether they're refugees or they could be entitled to vote or they're citizens, have become applicants for naturalization because their parents were Guyanese and things like that, we did not have anything of the sort. And that has kind of caused us more and more concern, especially in the context now of Jagdev saying that they could be voting. So imagine they got 22,000 and they have not been properly categorized. So that is a huge amount of people. They are with families, I understand. Some are working with Guyanese people here. There are very many of them in across all the regions. It is not only in Essequibo they are in. Some are in Berbice, some are in Linden and Demerara, all over the place. And so we are not being enlightened so that we can create any kind of scrutiny of this matter. And so the official figures we got, I could share it with you, that what we got from them is about 22,000 or thereabouts. I don't know how to use my figure, my thing to go back to the email as to what Todd gave to Amanza as a consequence.
22,417.
How much it come up to?
But no,
22,417.
22,417, yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
There
because
was a
if I
Go
may
ahead.
add,
Go ahead, go ahead, Adam.
there was a census, the figures of which have not been revealed. This census was completed in 2021 or 22, getting old. But the figures have not been released. And that census would have determined the number of Venezuelans, Brazilians, and all of that. Do you have any access to the latest census of this country?
No, I personally don't have it, and I don't think the opposition has it, because once one member of the opposition would have had it, he would have passed it around so that we all could have seen it and do our analysis of it too. So at this stage, that is like top secret for this government. And I could understand why they want it as top secret. They will come up with some plausible reason, but that's what it is, just plausible. We, the opposition, must also see those census documents. And it's unfortunate that, well, I haven't gotten it. I don't know at this stage if any other member got it and didn't pass it around. But that could also help in this regard. But there is this machination, I suspect, on reasonable grounds, that the PPP is doing a number on this Venezuelan citizenship, so to get those regions in their control for 2025. You take it from me.
Hi, good afternoon once again. My question is directed to Mr. Ramjatan. You previously mentioned that you were given some figures from scrutineers that there are dozens of Venezuelans being registered. Can you perhaps say who are those scrutineers? How many do you guys have and where are they located? Thank
In
you.
Region 1, we understand Region 1, and these are APNU scrutineers. We had asked that we be allowed to have scrutineers too, the AFC as a political party, in all the registration places. And the PPP indicated, no, they will only have one. And of course, the larger party, APNU, has named their persons. And so we are kind of left out. But we are in communication, and we are even hearing about this happening in Region 7, where our parliamentarian
And Region 9.
And which other ones, sir?
Region 9, we got a report.
And Region
as well
9.
from- yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, Mr. Ramchutan, hypothetically speaking here, if say the name of someone comes up on the voters list or elsewhere, the registration process for citizenship, how do you challenge that name beyond reasonable doubt if indeed a Tushao or a JP says that this person was born in Ghana? How do you actually go about refuting that to lay claim that this person should not be registered?
Well, we're going to bring it to members of the public that here we have a Tushao that is saying 30 years ago, Mr. Finance was born in Guyana, and I know that as a fact. I just want the information, because we will know what to do with it and how to go making the investigation as to whether this is scampishness or not. For all you know, the man is genuine. But I have my suspicions about that. And what we know that we can get from government offices are the names of all those late registrants. We, the public, want to know how many late registrants we had who said they're Guyanese, but they're talking Spanish and all of that. And they got families that talk Spanish and all of that, but they're now saying that they're born Guyanese. We will work it out, and we're going to know from that what to do thereafter, once the information is given by the government to us about the late registrants and so on.
Oh, then,
And
okay. Oh,
and looking at it from the other perspective or the flip side, Mr. Ramsden, to what extent, assuming that these persons are legitimately registered, they forming perhaps a group of people you can target in your own electioneering campaign?
Very good question.
Well, for you can probably carry it to that length, the initial length that we want, because we know that the government is going to give them literally buy their votes once they are so fraudulently put on the list. I am absolutely certain of that. This government, like to talk about other people, but they're going to rig the elections long before the elections are held by virtue of this. And that is what my concern is.
Yeah.
Dennis,
So
let me
you're
ask-
saying,
Dennis,
so you're saying
Dennis?
that this group here is not a group that you can also target in your campaign?
Dennis,
Well, Dennis, David, please answer that for me.
Dennis, listen to me. We are concerned not only about the current electoral, the upcoming electoral. We're concerned about the implication it has for Guyana as a country. And let me set this scenario, Mr. Sherrod. In 2015, the APNU coalition won by 4,500 votes. In 2011, the separation between us were about 6,000 votes. In 2020, the difference between the PPP and the combined opposition is 6,400, 6,380 between all the opposition and the PPP. So for the last 3 elections, we've had a 1-seat majority. Now, it's very short-sighted, and this is what I would like you to understand. It's very short-sighted now just for this simple try to get a numerical advantage over the opposition. You bringing in Venezuelans and behind this, whatever it is, the 2 shows and those things like that. Because very shortly, and if you continue doing it and the numbers increase, very shortly, one smart person that's on the list, and remember that the Chief Justice's rule, as long as you're on the list, you can't come back off that list and so many safeguards. Very shortly, just like GAP would have done and other persons would have done, and they formed a party to represent their own interests. Very shortly, one very smart person will form a Libra de Venezuela party.
Yes.
And this is a very real challenge, and you're talking about us strength. And with that, and they can garner enough votes, even 3,000 votes can garner you a seat because of the largest remainder. And if you keep doing this, we can end up having a hung parliament. You can have a thing, but you can't do anything with a group of migrants persons coming into this country. It's a big picture that we're concerned with it because it is a very short term and shabby and ill thought out procedure in which the PPP are following. When you continue doing that, if you continue doing that, you'll get migrants who are you brought on just for the very short term and short-sighted way. You can empower them, and you can get and just be very hypothetical, you can get 3,000 migrants get a seat in the parliament and move in a motion that Venezuela again should be ceded executable to Venezuela. These things have serious implications, not only just for the short term, which is what the PPP are. They're just simply short term. They're not long-term thinkers. And that is the danger in which we are trying to highlight it out that you start this, open this barn gate and the barn door, the horses will bolt and you cannot bring them back in. We have not our immigration because of the amendment to the ROPA Act and our immigration act, they're old and defunct. So when you start allowing people, I'm not being xenophobic, and I'm thinking with such a small population that we have here. So when you allow, if you put on just for sake, if you continue the rate they're doing, just to get a numerical advantage, by 2025 you register 3,000, and you do all the ads saying that PPP love you, AP and UAFC don't love you. Election time, somebody gets up. It might not even be a Venezuelan, it might be a Guyanese guy seeing the merit in it, a local person, goes to GCOM, registers a symbol, and campaigns among the Venezuelans that should you vote for them, he will protect their rights in the thing. And you can easily run into some serious problems. So it's not just the opportunity for the AFC to win them over. This is an issue for the entire country to be concerned with because of the short-sighted crookedness of the PPP.
Mr. Patterson,
Yeah, let me-
I understand what you said there, but how do you balance your concern with those who might be legitimately eligible to become citizens and also those returning Guyanese who are living in Venezuela with the right to right to vote?
There is a due process, and that's what Mr. Ramjitan has been trying to explain to you. That listen to me, that you say you want to bring a returning Guyanese, you say publicly this is a returning Guyanese, you disclose the information, you allow the country and the people to verify the information and those things like that, that there's a returning Guyanese. The numbers of returning Guyanese are not that are minuscule compared to the people that they're letting in onto the register. But information, right? You said you claim that you have been a Guyanese returning. You must have some documentation. But that's not what we talk about. We talk about somebody coming back here and Tushao Jose saying, "Oh yes, I my grandfather knew you, and I swear he's a Guyanese," and well, without any documentation whatsoever, right? So so we're not trying to conflate the issue of persons coming back, because of course if you left Guyana, I mean, if I migrated 40 years ago, I still have my birth certificate. I can still go down to the registry of Guyana. That's what it's supposed to do, and get an authenticate this and get a copy of your old original birth certificate. We're supposed to have a copy of every birth certificate at the GRO office. But that's not what's happening, Dennis, and that's what we're raising the flags about.
Right, I understand, Mr. Patterson. Please bear me out. What I'm trying to understand, whether your concern will still hold water for those Venezuelans who were born to Guyanese parents and also eligible for citizenship.
No, I made that distinction already, Dennis.
Oh, all right.
We are not
okay.
desirable of denying anybody the vote who are authentic Guyanese. But we
But
have
not
the
only
authentic
Venezuelans,
Guyanese
it's all
already. Guyanese have been coming back for a while now. Okay, and they've shown that they got their birth certificate and so on, and the registration exercise have started since 2018. But what we see now, and we are hearing from these scrutineers, is a different kettle of fish
exactly.
completely. And that is what we only the other day, myself and Aubrey Norton, was saying that the government of Guyana is sleeping on the wheels, because these people that they were trying to do by making voters and so on in Guyana, they can now be the sleepers that can then go and literally go back and say, we want Essequibo as our territory. Do you know the national security reasons, the challenges that we can face when you start now, because of this political ploy of trying to get some more voters for the PPP, they're now gone and they get the whole of Essequibo as a result of saying that we are 22,000 of us, we want to vote, we are living in Essequibo, and the thing has tremendous, like what Crimea, the Russians did with Crimea. And these fellas simply don't understand that. They're only thinking about the short-term power. Assuming 22,000 Venezuelans now in Essequibo or thereabouts said, we want Venezuela to own Essequibo.
Yeah, Kemraj, let me add just a little. Again, the opposition is willing to compete under any grounds as long as it's a fair competition. And the points that even based on the vice president, and that video that came out, and that's why I implore that the media start focusing on those videos. Meaning the opposition and the government, met and decided that we're going to work in unity. And then right after that meeting, apparently the vice president goes and meets with these Venezuelans and then puts out a video to say that the PNC and the AFC hate all Venezuelans.
Yeah.
Dr. Vince is getting some audio, some
Let me-
internet challenges. Apologize.
Others, whereas the government, hello, yeah,
Yeah, you're breaking up, Vince. You're breaking up.
yes, I'm getting some, but I hope that because we're starting out thinking that we've got a fair process when the opposition and the government met and they decided on a process so that we can have solidarity. But here you have the president apparently going and meeting with these Venezuelans and saying that that the opposition hates you and why the government love you. So regardless of whether you're legitimate or not, that's creating a sense of unfairness. So it's not a matter of competing. I mean, we're willing to compete as long as the playing field is fair.
Excellent.
Question.
Sure.
Yes. Oh, all right. No. No, let me take Kimal. I can go after Kimal.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Kemal King with Oil Now. Mr.
Go ahead.
Ramjatan, the vice, could you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay, the vice president reminded during his press conference yesterday that the previous government had wanted to establish a settlement for the Venezuelan migrants in Region 1. Is that so? And whatever happened to that plan? And how do you feel about it right now?
No, the
And
plan
product-
was Kimal, this fella
Yeah.
is master of the art of distorting and confusing. When we in government had indicated that there was going to be a settlement, it was for refugees. We wanted them to be in one area because we have an international obligation, just like what is happening to the Palestinians now. You have an obligation because they are genuine refugees that were coming to Guyana. And the IOM, or the International Organization on Migration, had indicated that we have to, as a country, to take care of Venezuelan refugees. And that was 2015 coming on. And we had an obligation to ensure that we provide at least shelters and a settlement in a sense for them. And we didn't want them to be scattered all over the place. So we decided that the plan with the IOM, who were going to give us a couple $100,000 US also to help in settling them at one place somewhere in Esquibo. I forgot where it is now. A venue is, I think.
Allow me when you're ready, finish.
Yeah.
Can elaborate.
And the whole idea was in that context to form what is called a settlement, but they were for only refugees, not late registrants that now come on in last year by the Attorney General and all this wickedness that we see passing now. So we were in keeping with our international obligations to have a settlement. And we had wanted IOM to help us in that. And the IOM, the United Nations Refugee Organization, had indicated, yes, we are doing wonderful once, of course, we provided the land. And we said, fine, we're going to provide the land. And that is separate and apart from what Jack Dale now mischievously is doing with the late registrants and other people. And they would have never gone into the voters list, these refugees.
Just allow me to elaborate. I'm told to put on my camera. Just allow me to elaborate the difference between what it is. And Mr. Ramjatan is absolutely correct. And the vice president is a mischievous and almost wicked, dangerous person. The issue of the Venezuelan migrants started, I think, as the situation in Venezuela deteriorated. During our time, it was concentrated in Region 1. They were coming in, the Venezuelan migrants, and mostly at that time, that the ones who were coming down, that they were coming into the country, and most of them were, as Dennis Woodball, who will answer questions in a minute, claimed to be Venezuelan of Guyanese descent, and they were mostly from an indigenous tribe. I can't remember the name. I think Arawak or whatever it is. And they congregated and they crossed over into in Region 1, in Region 1. We, at the time, but there were several challenges in what this. First thing that the first issue that arose was that when they arrived in the country, they had no records. And I'm not talking about birth certificates, so they had no medical records. There was no record of if they were immunized and those things like that, etc., etc. And we took and obviously what we did in association with the ICHR, I think the refugees person, is say, fair enough. These persons are coming, they're claiming that they are Guyanese returning. Don't not admit them. They're coming as genuine refugees. So what we did, we said you could come and ensure, because we have a very long porous border. And if you close off any area, they will just leak through. So we allowed them to come in. They had to register, not register as anything. We had to record their names and get their background. If they didn't provide any immunization, and that's how immunization cards, we vaccinated all of them in the so that obviously that no diseases which we've already overcome could be spread here, and then obviously and they were they went through the normal refugee process any refugee would do. What happened then? They were all in a area called Kansin and Mabaruma and those places like that, and the conditions, as the number increased, the conditions became inhumane. So they're all, they're a makeshift camp and what we said, this is not humane. We have responsibilities and those things like that. Instead of them camping, they were all there in hammocks and so forth. The sanitation, I was there myself, because that's right close to one particular area where the solar farm is in Mabaruma. So the sanitary conditions were terrible. So we said, as humane persons, what we shall do is put build an area where they can go, like anywhere else, put in facilities for them in sanitation, water, those things like that, as opposed to having them just living like this. And that is what we said we were doing. What Jagdeo is trying to portray, that we were opening a map and thing. We are simply doing, and this is simply doing what any normal, responsible government is supposed to do when you get refugees. We were providing, of course, and we said if they're in the similar area, and then of course now to come down to leave Region 1 under the Ministry of Citizenship and the Ministry of Home Affairs, you have to be sponsored. So if anybody said out that they were all in Region 1, that's where they came over. But if anyone wants to come cut it, I can tell you this, because the ferry is the route you're using to come down, or the airport. Anybody to get onto the ferry, you would have to prove, and somebody would sponsor you, saying, listen to me, this is my brother, sister, long lost family. I live at 1111 Corridor Dam. And then we would inspect, and then we would give them a pass to come down. Very orderly, very organized, very humane. What Mr. Jagdeo is trying to portray is Mr. Kimo is absolutely the opposite of what we were attempting to do, because the numbers were not great. We don't deny anybody. We recognize that there was a humanitarian crisis over in the border
Venezuela.
Venezuela. So we said, fair enough, you come, cross over, check in the police station, check in the Ministry of Health outpost, get a card, so forth, and then this is a temporary area where you can be housed until the situation improves. And secondly, Mr. Chevron, that I hope you didn't, hope you allowed, permit me, Sherrod. Dennis Chevron has asked, what makes our party think that Venezuelans born to Guyanese and eligible to be Guyanese citizens would not be loyal to Guyana? In the sense that what he's saying is that, if you're from Guyanese parentage, your loyalty will be there. Dennis, I'll tell you one of the really big concerns we have: insecurity. A Guyanese does not differentiate local born Venezuelan migrant as opposed to we lump them all in the same category. And it happens to any migrant situation. If you go to if we go to certain parts of America, they lump us all as Haitians. And and of course, whatever distrust there is for that particular society is passed on to them. So there's a question of security in numbers. That is the concern it is. I mean, you're born in Venezuela, even though you have a Guyanese parent, but you're born in Venezuela. You come to Guyana, you persons will still perceive you to be a Venezuelan. So at the end of the day, you probably will end up siding with the country you're born, even though historically your parents came from Guyana. That is a concern, Dennis.
All right. Thanks, Dennis, for the
Can
question.
I also ask?
Go ahead, Dennis.
It's Kamal. Dr. Adams,
Go ahead.
do you plan to seek office on the AFC ticket come 2025?
I don't even know what I don't even know what I'll be doing. I'll be eating for breakfast tomorrow morning. No, listen, and this has nothing to do with the AFC. As I don't know if you know Kimal, but I have these guys can. My internet is going in and out. But these guys can tell you I have been doing voluntary work in Guyana for decades now, even before I joined the AFC just a relatively few years ago. So my interest is not in a political party per se. My interest is in doing whatever I can to give back to Guyana in whatever capacity. So, your question is, I appreciate your question, but I don't know whether I'll do that or not, whether I'll be doing it through the political arena, which is where I thought, that would give me the opportunities to contribute more to the country. But whether I do it through the political arena or not, I will still continue to contribute to the country either way.
All right, let me make a general comment. A man like
Go
Dr.
ahead.
Adams refused to work with the White House and refused to work for the White House recently. And I'm saying, as a vice chairman of this party, my party, that once that time comes and we are there, I will certainly ask Dr. Vince Adams to be an advisor to us in this oil and gas because of his expertise. This is something that we cannot throw away. I was
Absolutely.
free of cost. If it's free of cost, I will beg him to do that. That is my take.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Just allow me to say something. Sorry, Jenny.
Appreciate it. Any other questions?
No,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
surprised. Oh, Adam, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, Adams.
My question has to do with the electricity generation system, and I wanted to ask Mr. Patterson, what was the system in place during the coalition to monitor these turbines, generators, whatever you call them, so that you would always have a supply of spare parts? And what was the system in place for maintenance as compared to today?
Very good question, Dennis, and I'm glad you asked me that. Now, in 2015, as you know, when we took over, our grid was shaky. The Reed and Hoop with the last attempt that the PPP had to put power in, and that was badly done, to say the least. A couple of things that we did to ensure when we I've always talked about the story about the famous issue about the metering story, the tender for the metering in 2015, when I got in there, and the discovery was that that a set of middlemen already were always winning the meters and those things like that, and a set of inferior parts were being used. So the board, and in collaboration, we decided that what we would do for spare parts is go directly. And I've said this before, and Jaglio and crew always try to trivialize it. we went to the suppliers, the manufacturers
The
of all
manufacturers.
of these spare parts. We stopped going out to tender and persons were bringing in inferior Chinese parts, which I could know that for the meters for sure. I know that for the protection gear needed along the wires and those things, and the transformers. We went to suppliers and we made a bulk order. You know what I mean? Of course, it took a while because we made a bulk. So we cut out the middleman flat. It's back again. I mean, they love this thing saying, oh, they went by a public tender. But you go by a public tender and you without the checks and balances, you get inferior parts, and that's what was happening. So therefore, when we came to parts, you know, I mean, we were buying just a simple idea. I mean, a safety boots for GPL wasn't lasting 8 months via the public tender, because you mean you buy something that looked quite good at first, but then it broke down. So we went through for the entire. We did an inventory, and then of course, what we found is that there's not a good inventory system. So we went through from top to bottom, made a list, went out, committed our money, and bought at least a year, 18 months worth of stock in advance. So therefore, we could never, every 18 months we restock, so we could never be out of it. Then maintenance on what we found, and that is why I mentioned PPDI. What we found is that Warcilla had a contract, and the contract was to do Kingston 1. But when we checked, and the contract was coming to an end, but when we did the investigation, they were charging us 2 or 3 times over prime for same parts, when we went to the generators. And then we found that there was another issue where GPL were responsible for their own maintenance of generators when they get failing. And what happened then is that GPL would defer maintenance based on their cash flow. So if they have no money to buy the part, they say, all right, don't let us, because generators work on running hours. And every 10,000 hours, you got to change particular parts. So the GPL were making the call because at that time in 2015, because if we had any cash flow issues, let's run it for another 5,000 hours. So 15,000 hours, let's change it over. And that was contributing to the wear and tear. That's why we formed PPDI, which is separate, and that was dealt with only maintenance. And there's a schedule. Everyone knew that these plants are going to be done in September. The projections were there. It means all worked out with GPL. We stayed on top of it. We did a tremendous lot. You could remember Mr. Albert Gordon. I think he came in, and his very first press conference, I think Dennis Rabal was there, if you could recall. He went through the grid, and we did a test. There were 17 ways in which we could have a total system collapse. That was in, whenever, I can't remember which year he came. And he explained in great detail that in a working proper grid, the numbers of where you could have a total system collapse or shutdown are in the single digits, 3 or 4, you know, I mean, a war, bomb, etc. And those things. In Guyana, when he came out, there's 17 different reasons that we can have it. And we started addressing that. I mean, the issues of this is how far we had progressed. If there was an accident on the East Coast, only the East Coast area, we put in isolation, only the East Coast area was stripped. We're back to the situation where there's an accident on the East Coast, it blocks the whole country, or the whole country is blocked out. I mean, there's a guy reversed a truck on the embankment, and the whole country was done. You know what I mean? There's a fire on the East Coast, and we started doing redundancy as well as protection of the system, isolating the system. So therefore, Lord forbid there's an accident in, say, in Melanie, right? Only I mean, of course, it's unfortunate for that, but only the environments around the Melanie substation would be done, and that's one of the ways. They've abandoned all of that. They've abandoned. We trained our linesmen, incentivied them. You know, these are our transmission and distribution personnel. So we took on more persons. We trained them. We sent some to the islands. You know, I mean, they have a similar grid. And we train them in what you call live maintenance whereby you don't have to take off the power to do high tension high voltage maintenance. I mean, we train them and we set them around to keep working. So therefore, when at one stage by 2018, 2019, we could have done maintenance on high voltage wires, right? Without because we had the protection, without shutting the system down like they're doing now. Soon as they came in, they, as usual, they abandoned that. They went back to the to buying cheap spare parts. They went back out to tenders. They give it a try. I said it to them. They've never denied it, and I know for sure they brought in some Trinidadian companies, maybe who would have financed them for the election, and they will give them the contract to do the transmission and distribution line, $1 million, and send the entire, of course, and what the Trinidadians did, of course, that they just hired out people that the GPL spent 5 years training, just hired them and started using them. So they gutted what GPL had. The transmission distribution line maintenance crew is a skeleton crew at the moment. They just simply abandon all best practices. I mean, we put in, you can recall, Adam, you know what I mean, and then they trivialize a lot of the things we do. There was a submarine cable, one single submarine cable that carried 26 megawatts across from Breeden Hoop to Kingston. Every 6 months or 9 months, a ship would pass and its anchor, while it's in the middle of a shipping lane, would damage that, and we would have shortages. We put in additional cables over in Princess Street over at Wales. So therefore, should they want, so we have 3. So we have now 3. I don't know if all are functioning. We have 3 submarine cables there. One goes down, the other 2 back it up. Those are the things that we would have done to ensure that, you know what I mean, that we stayed ahead of the curve. In addition to, obviously, the most obvious one, we did demand forecasting. We realized that we need 20 to 30 megawatts. We bought 4 to 6 in one go. The plants, the 4 plants in Garden of Eden, 46 megawatts, 46.2 megawatts. We both put 46 megawatts in. That was 2019 and 2020. They have done nothing at all since 2020.
Let me add quickly, David, and I'm not going to attempt to.
Go ahead, Dr. Prince.
Yeah, without getting into the details, because nobody knows the details better than David. And I hope that the media are taking note of these details. I guess my internet again. I hope that the media is taking note of all the details that you're presenting to push back on some of the nonsense that comes out of the mouth of the vice president. Because even in his last press conference, again, he's blaming this whole blackout stuff, like he always does, always blaming it on everybody else, on the past administration. And the one thing that needs to always be highlighted to this vice president is that of the last 31 years of governance of this country, they governed for it's really 27 of those years, because the opposition only governed for 4 out of those. They governed for almost 90% of that time. And equipment such as these do not fail overnight or fail within 4 years. So in terms of the big picture, how could you, but hey, I mean, there's no end to what the vice president would say, because he keeps blaming this blackout. He always goes back to the past administration. Now, how could you do that when you've governed for 27 out of the 31 years? And that's the big picture. And the results speak for itself as to when the coalition came into office, what the coalition meant, and when the coalition left office, what the electricity condition was. Those are facts. You cannot deny those.
In addition, Cheryl, Dr. Vince, is the first time when he talks about power and our administration before, is the first time he didn't mention Amelia Falls hydro project. You know why? Because it is bone dry. You understand me? There's not a drop of water coming there. I said the first time in a press conference when he blaming us on power, he didn't talk about the Amelia Falls.
No, project. He did. He did, Ricky. He did.
You mentioned it?
He did.
He did say that bone dry. And I don't know why.
Yeah.
I was hoping that some questions would have come from the journalists.
Absolutely.
What would he do in a case like that? I know they
Yeah.
wanted to put the reserve for the whole water, but how much water you gonna hold? Because you're gonna create ecological damage when you do that. And that was
Yep.
the environmental hazard that would have been created when you go to
11 days reserve, Ricky. We 11 days reserve, I mean, I've always said to the PPP, and I can repeat it here now, that if they're so confident of the, if they're so
Amila.
confident of the Amila Falls, bring a motion and let us talk about it in Parliament. 11 days reserve. That's what the offset. I wasn't in Parliament as a General Secretary, but I was integral in discussion. Can I tell you? We voted, the AFC voted with them to set an environmental offset, which had to compensate for the reserve. 11 days of power if you have no water. So therefore, anyway.
In
David,
dry seasons like
David,
this,
there's no limit. David, in the same press conference, this guy even is taking credit for all the roads that you built.
Don't worry with that. But one other issue I wanted to raise. Sorry, I came in late, and I'm surprised Mr. King from Oil Now has not asked it. The question is the question on the natural gas monetization strategy. It is the most embarrassing document that can be produced in this era, and on behalf of a government. I mean, it's almost kindergarten. Like I know I saw yesterday that Jagdeo said that it's not a strategy, it's a discussion paper. But he sat down and he touted that there would be a monetization strategy paper where, and then the whole country was waiting for it. I took the time out to go through all 42 pages, and it's such a poorly written document. It's almost like if a kindergarten school used ChatGPT or something like that and wrote it. It's contradictory. I mean, it's one section it says we can do this, the other section says we know we can't do that. There's no clear plan. There's no clear idea. I know it has come under a lot of criticism, not only from myself but all and anybody, all the technical persons, of lacking of substance. So I mean, I know Oil Now had championed a big article once about it's being shortly have a oil natural gas strategy. I do hope that you do a follow-up article saying that the strategy is now for just discussion. And once again, you know, I mean, as the opposition, you know, I mean, I know that they've given persons until November the 14th. We wouldn't be responding. There's nothing really to respond to that. You know, I mean, if they would like the opposition input, set up a bipartisan committee through, I don't know, the Ministry of Natural Resources or through the Parliamentary Committee of Natural Resources, and we gladly would sit with the government and share our expertise, not in what they're doing at the moment.
All right. Thank you very much, David. Guys, do you have any other questions?
yeah, it's about an
Raj, you
hour.
wanted to begin it?
No. I just wanted to say that, look, this was a unique opportunity. We had to deal with Mr. Jagdeo on all these issues. And I hope that they're given the prominence in the various press as we noticed that he is given. I have a meeting now to go to. And unless there are any other questions, we can call it today.
We've done just over an hour. Any other questions? We're happy to take one more. If none, folks, I want to thank you.
Yeah, make sure you send the recording out, or make sure you send out the recording early.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I want to keep the brothers meeting. Today is Friday, so I can let it go and work. I can keep my question, or I can mail it to y'all and talk about some other issues.
Okay, good.
Thank you
good.
very much, Adam. Folks, thanks for joining us. Those of you who joined us across social media and elsewhere, thank you.